All right, welcome everybody. What's going on, San Francisco? Well, I'll say this is a pretty interesting industry forum because at the end of the day, there's only one industry forum with a touch of rock and roll in it, and you'll find out very, very soon. I happen to be a musician in my other life, when I'm not working in AI software and trying to do cool things at Databricks. I actually am a musician, so I'm a big rock and roll fan, so I try to keep a level of a healthy dose of rock and roll in everything I do. So if it's too cheesy, just move on with your lives and we'll go have a beer later tonight. But I try to incorporate rock and roll in everything I do. So first of all, for this session, who definitely didn't endorse the rock and roll version of the industry forums are Deloitte and AWS. So where are my Deloitte and AWS people? So a big round of applause. Without them, we would not have been able to hold this session, and thank you for your support over the years. One of our strongest partners, a couple of our strongest partners, and help us innovate for our customers. Another set of really important partners that I wanted to really thank is our Brick Builder partners. So people who don't know about the Brick Builder program, it is one of the most successful, most important things we can do at Databricks. And what does Brick Builders represent? What Brick Builders represents is really solutions that are built on top of Databricks' game-changing technology. It's solutions that are focused on use cases, value-accretive solutions that are actually going to be used by end users, business users. So if you are building a digital twin solution, if you're building predictive maintenance into your operations, if you are building a dynamic pricing engine, all of these players are helping, all of these partners are building the next generation of AI-enabled solutions in all of these functions, whether it's supply chain, whether it's connected customer relationships, whether it's connected products, warranty, you name it. So big thank you to Avanade, Soluble Technologies, Datacentix, Ernst & Young, Tredence, and Deloitte, who are countlessly building and innovating with us on a number of solutions, and we're very excited to be deepening these partnerships so that we can bring more and more innovation for customers sooner. And also, yesterday, some of our partners were able to be recognized for their amazing contributions. All our partners are winners, I will just say that. But at the same time, there are some who win bigger than others. And for them, I'd like to congratulate Capgemini, who's Manufacturing Partner of the Year, Soluble Technologies, that's Energy and Utilities Partners of the Year, and then on the ISV side, Aviva, who I know is in the room, Partner of the Year on the manufacturing side. So big round of applause for all of these amazing companies. All right, so we have about 56 minutes together. So we're going to go through some of these amazing sessions. I happen to have the luxury of slotting what I believe some of the most amazing voices in our industry for AI and how do you actually lead with AI, not just the technology aspect of it, but actually making things, building things that are adoptable by the business. And there's more than just technology in that. So we'll cover a lot of ground today. So I have with me Victor D'Souza, who's joining us from Applied Materials. We'll be talking about what it means to accelerate AI innovation in semiconductors and high tech. I'll have Dr. Andre Levin from BCG and BCGX talking about how they're building the next generation of pricing and sales AI solutions using Databricks and how that's helping customers in the automotive industry. And I also have the unique pleasure of working with my two favorite Brits, which is Richard Masters from Virgin Atlantic, as well as Andy Eisenman from Heathrow Airport, which are going to talk to us about how Delta sharing is really transforming this space of aviation data collaboration. And it's cool because it's something that you and I, everybody in this audience, if you fly frequently or if you fly at all, you actually observe the impact of data collaboration in the industry. So this will be a really cool use case that we'll be sharing today. So I did talk about rock and roll. So the topic of this, the driving theme behind this industry forum is really one of relentless innovation. And one such relentless innovator is a guitar player that I hold in the highest regard. Somebody who's influenced me and countless other musicians around the world. That guy's name is Edward Van Halen. Any Eddie Van Halen fans out here? So Eddie is one of those relentless innovators that truly pushed the boundaries of what was possible with the guitar. And relentless innovation like that is what sets true titans apart, whether it's in music, whether it's in technology, or it's in manufacturing or transportation. Eddie didn't just play the guitar, he reinvented it. He took it to places, and the sounds he created were just not heard of before. And he built new tools and sounds that changed music forever. So Eddie could have played the same guitar or the same amplifiers as everybody else. You know, he could have shown, he was not satisfied with what was off the shelf. So everybody in Eddie's time was using Gibson Les Paul. So for the guitar nerds, taking a Gibson Les Paul and plugging it into a Marshall amp, you know, pretty standard. You have a Stratocaster and you plug it into a Fender amp, pretty standard again. And a lot of legendary music came out of those tools. They're amazing tools in their own right. But he didn't settle for what was off the shelf. He wanted a sound that was unmistakably his. And he tinkered. He tinkered relentlessly. He built what is called the Frankenstrat, which looks something like this. It is not the prettiest guitar on the planet. It has a few things missing, but this guitar was made by combining parts from many different guitars of the generation. And it created a unique sound, but then he went a step further. That thing underneath the pickups right there is what is called a tremolo system. It's called a floating tremolo system. He actually patented that in his guitars. So it allowed you to bend notes beyond octaves that you could have ever thought. And he patented this. And he was the first person to actually go do that. And these inventions enabled him to truly push the boundaries of what guitar playing was about and created sounds that no one else could replicate. It was truly an eruption of sound and a new benchmark of music. And he also created what is known as the 5150 amp. So he didn't stop at the guitar. He kept tinkering. He kept tinkering with amplifiers, different tones, and he created something that was unmistakably his. So when you hear any song by Van Halen, you immediately, instantly recognize that's Eddie Van Halen's playing. You can never tell. Nobody else can replicate that. And Eddie didn't stop at hardware. The EVH, or the Eddie Van Halen gear brand, and the 5150 amp were not just products. They became platforms. They got reimagined as software, adopted by generations of musicians, and integrated into digital music production tools. This opened up a whole new ecosystem, allowing others to build on his innovation and shape new sounds. In industry, I feel titans, the transformation agents in each of these industries, whether it's in manufacturing or transportation or anything in between, they're making the same shift. They're no longer content in selling a product with an episodic relationship. They're continuously moving to as-a-service models that are actually pivoting and adapting to customers' needs in real time. And they're embracing services, they're embracing interconnected ecosystems, and digital engineering at scale. So in this AI gold rush, companies fundamentally have the same choice, in my opinion, as Eddie did back when he was playing. What's off the shelf? Off the shelf is what is general intelligence systems, built on the vast data on the internet. And if I had to take an analogy, if the data on the internet were a library, then it's safe to say that everybody is reading from the same pile of books. But then there's the path that Eddie took. Just as Eddie's gear became such a unique part of his sound, your data is the foundation for your unique competitive advantage. And that is the essence of data intelligence. It is building AI on your organization's own data, your customer interactions, your operational history, your deep product knowledge, your proprietary processes, in a way that no generic model can ever match. And just like a good rock and roll concert, this is the part where audience participation is required. What I would like you all to do is take your phones out, get your phones out. I know some of you are already taking pictures. Get your phones out. And I would like you to point it at that QR code over there. This will take you to a survey link. So let me give you some context on what it's taking you to. It's taking you to a survey link. This is what is called the Data Intelligence Business Outcome Map. And if you access this, this will take you to a survey link. Well, this is the part where you help us help you. So if you tell us what are the areas and use cases that are super important to you, we will put investment behind it to build more solutions for you alongside ourselves and our amazing partner ecosystem. So I'd encourage you to take a few seconds and go through the QR code, go to the survey link, pick the top 5 use cases that come to your mind that are most important for you and your organizations to create value. And as you do that, I'm going to introduce somebody I'm super excited about to come up on stage and do a fireside chat about what it means to accelerate innovation in semiconductors and high tech. So Victor D'Souza, quick round of applause. All right, Victor, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Victor, you are in an interesting industry. Semiconductors was like a huge topic when the COVID pandemic was happening, and there was a bunch of disruptions and shortages and so on. So you sit at the heart of semiconductor industry. I think the whole world got exposed to how important this industry is and the impact it has on your lives, on our industries at large. Tell us can you share some specific examples of how AI is changing the very nature of work at Applied Materials and what this means for the skills and roles at the company?
Absolutely. So everybody loved the kickoff, the Eddie Van Halen portion. Super amazing, right? I think there's one portion you got it wrong, Shiv. The sequence. You set the bar so high after Eddie Van Halen, and then you got me on the stage, right? So maybe I think you meant your friends from Heathrow. You wanted them up here. But if you take that out of the way, we look at AI, and we begin to look at AI because we've been playing in the traditional machine learning space for a while now, right? We've been using it in our tools. We've been using it to improve our services. But when Gen AI hit a few years back, the first thing was, is this really a tool, or should we think of it as a team member, as a teammate? Right? Because if you ask a tool a question and you don't like what the answer is, you can toss it. Is that what you would really do if you were asking a teammate that question? Hope most of us won't do that, right? We would nudge it, we would guide it, we would give it that context, we would encourage it to move in a direction where the domain expertise, the data asset of the company lay, and give us grounded either augmentation capabilities, because RP has been around for a while. But if you think of what AI workflows can do, what agentic AIs can do, it can up the game. These models now have reasoning capability, short-term memory, long-term capability. The possibilities are infinite. Is automation the only aspect of it? Can it augment as well? Think of a research job. We've got materials embedded in our name. Most of our new college graduates, 50% of those and above, are PhDs in material science. The time and effort that goes into conducting those researches, can we give them these research tools for them to up the game, for them to give a leg up? Think of the software engineering community, right? The code acceptance rates, the generation, the optimization, the documentation. So huge, huge impact out there as far as the augmentation is concerned. So some of the key areas that we've explored, there are some really critical tools that we have. The bill of materials goes 18 level deep. Post-assembly, these tools take weeks, if not months, to calibrate. We now have a machine learning model that significantly converts those weeks and months worth of effort down to hours with no human in the loop. Think of some of the challenges that we've got as far as different defects. As these nodes get smaller and smaller, as you can print more circuits on the smallest size possible, the number of defects, the different types of defect can get really complex.
Yeah.
And access to those back in the day, if you went about the supervised learning route, access to those with clearly labeled images and train an AI model, those have gone significantly down. But some of these capabilities we are using to really go about provide our engineers in the field that capability to go look at really, really complex defects on these dies, associate the root cause to it, and come up with solutions that would have taken them very, very long time, as example.
Yeah. So one of the things is, like, I think there's no shortage of good things to do in AI, right? And you lead data and AI for Applied Materials, right? So, like, as companies are looking through this, and it's almost a leadership, it's not almost, it is a leadership challenge, right? Where you have to manage the hype around AI, but also have to show results, and then you also have to manage the risk, because some of these models are doing things that you can't explain. There are some, you don't want your data becoming part of the public corpus. Like, help me understand, like, how important is this at Applied? Like, to go into this eyes wide open, but also be able to control the risk, because you're in a unique industry where you have to balance the innovation and the risk part.
Interesting. The timing of this couldn't be better. So this is the level of importance that we're giving to AI, again, as a teammate, not as a tool in our ecosystem. I'm presenting later in the evening, or a little too late than I would prefer, to the board of directors, because they really want to.
They're in Europe.
Because they happen to be in Europe, so that's the reason why we've got to do it really late. But they want to understand, as Gen AI hit the world almost 2.5, 3 years back now, we identified an enterprise-level risk, the risk of using it from a legal, from an IP leak, from a contamination, and the security aspect of, are we going to expose our networks, our IP to external, not just external, but internal threats as well, where access to information, the threat of access to information can get amplified, right? So we had to factor those in legal, security, and IP. And on the flip side of it is what happens if we don't use it? What are the competitive advantage? I gave you a few examples earlier. Yeah. What happens if we don't use it? Can we give our tools and services that leg up, right? So as we were thinking about these AI solutions, we fundamentally bracketed into 3 categories. We thought about how do we use these capabilities to make our existing services and operations better, faster, cheaper? How do we give our leg up to our products and services? And ultimately, how do we go about discovering new materials or enabling the research of it? So we had to build these guardrails. The first thing we did is we took a super step back and said, we're going to block all things which is .ai. So those folks in the room, you have got .ai in your name, please don't take this personally. Because there was this concern that we didn't want to be one of those guys. There's this really popular case, unfortunately, where an engineer uploads a code and says, help me optimize this code. That code became part of
your industry.
Exactly, right? We didn't want that. We didn't want our IP to be part of the public corpus out there, right? But again, we didn't want to lose the competitive advantage either. So we had to go build this, define these guardrails, define these swim lanes, where then we can really accelerate to the approach that I called earlier, from an automation, from an augmentation standpoint, and really let our researchers, our engineers have at it, to throw the data set at it and see what they can get out of it.
Interesting. So with that, like, the urgency from business leaders or functional leaders or engineering leaders is only going to increase around how do I put AI in engineering, how do I put AI in customer support, how do I put AI in product support, or whatever function you name it, right? So a lot of these functional leaders, these line of business leaders, are probably knocking on your door every day, Victor, when can I have this in my business? So help me understand, like, how is, like, that urgency, this, like, because we're seeing this in almost every customer, and I'm sure everyone in this room is facing this in many ways because they manage data and AI. How are you dealing with, this new just urgency that you've not probably seen before on AI, and what strategies have you implemented to ensure alignment and business value being delivered?
I think what really resonated to me with the slide you showed up there is how important data is. The fact that you can now bring data together at vast scale, do it efficiently, guarantee the quality of it, right? So that's where, for us, the setting up of the platform, moving from a legacy on-premise environment to move it to the cloud, where we can do this at scale. We have a 4 petabyte system for us to put all our data sets together. How does one know what's in this reservoir of data that we have? So that's really, you've got solutions like Unity Catalog that stood out for us, because what we were seeing is there was a problem of plenty that was kicking in. Some of our users, engineers, developed the kid in the candy store syndrome, where the moment you gave them access to all of this, there was this deluge of engineers coming, and for a lot of it was creating redundant capabilities. So with the likes of Unity Catalog now, we can, sitting on the data intelligence platform, not just do it at scale, but really have the capability to go explore data assets, get the semantic layer information about it, get the metadata information about it. Once that is out of the way, now you've got your ML flows. That's what we're in the process of implementing. We've got the AI factory, which allows us to use these data sets, bounce the latest and greatest models, have the capability to experiment at pace, at speed, and then really using the agentic framework, deploy them or create knowledge assist and those kind of solutions. So that's how we've gone about it, to make sure foundationally we can ensure we can do that at scale, govern the information, put the process around it, give them the capability to explore, and then experiment rapidly and deploy at scale.
Very interesting. So tell me, of all the communities at Applied Materials, all the functions, people who are most, who's the most engaged community? Functionally, who's been let's just say, knocking on your door the hardest?
Well, I wouldn't call the squeaky wheel getting the most oil here, but there were different groups. I mean, we got engineers spread all across the company, right? And you're an engineer yourself, you know how it goes. Yeah. When they see something like this, a lot of them, so you got two opposite spectrum. One is, I tried it once, didn't work it, let me check it. Second is, I think I can go solve every problem that I ever encountered. I'm going to go solve it with this particular solution that's available to us, right? So we've got our engineering community, which are in the business of doing the research. Think of the corpus of white papers, experiments, and everything that we have in our ecosystem for decades that we've collected.
Yeah.
There were search engines on top of it. We are moving out of the business of search engine and moving into an answer engine. Not just have the capability to go search, mine information that lies in this vast corpus of knowledge that we've compiled and collected over years, a lot of it which have been untapped and untouched. These people took it, they embraced it. Now we've got a solution which gives the engineering community a leg up and says, has somebody conducted this experiment in the past? What were some of the parameters that they use? That's how they've gone about thinking, right? Very happy to report our HR community were equally excited. We now have solutions we've deployed where, depending on the region, Applied is all over the map. We've got different regions which have different policies. All of those are now made available local to them. They can query that in their local language. It will give them specific answers, which then could get tied to an agentic AI to actually go fill out a leave application, a relocation application, all that kind of stuff. So, we've got roughly around 10 plus Gen AI-based solutions deployed with roughly around 13 to 15,000 users.
Wow. Okay. And how long did that take you, if you don't mind me asking?
In the past 2.5 years, the first year and a half was building these guardrails, and then we just took off.
Very cool. Very cool. So all of these people here are kind of your peers and, different industries. What would be one piece of advice for them to be successful in their roles?
It can get overwhelming with all these things that is hitting us from every direction, right? There literally is never a time when you don't see something breaking and think, this could be of importance to me. I think you've got to stop trying to dip your toes in the water and take the plunge. You've got to start small. You've got to experiment with something that you think is relevant for you. You should try it with your own data set. Roll that out to pilot users. Here's the critical portion, right? What we felt was when we went all in and we took longer time, it didn't really, by the time somebody saw it, it's not what they had in mind. Do shorter releases, roll it out to pilot users, incorporate iteratively the feedback that you're getting, and then when it's generally available, then focus on adoption, because we all get asked the same questions. You want us to make multi-million-dollar investments, what is the ROI? The ROI is not going to come through week 1, week 2, week 3. Adoption, increasing the adoption, capturing the feedback, focusing on AI literacy, and adding solutions to it is when you start to see ROI coming to fruition.
Yeah, and when I met with Victor, he had this really interesting comment. It's like, AI progress is not measured in weeks or months anymore. So if you have a plan that is 18 to 24 months or 18 to 24 weeks, please shorten that to 18 to 24 days. So that really stuck with me. Victor, thank you so much for amazing insights.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing it with the group here. All right, Victor D'Souza, everybody. Perfect, thank you. All right, so now, without further ado, I'm going to invite somebody who's had one of the longer commutes to get to San Francisco, and he's braved transatlantic flights. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Andrew Levin from BCG. Go ahead, my friend. Here you go.
So glad to be here. Hope the mic works. Awesome. What an event. What a growth story. My name is Andre. I'm partner with BCG, and what I would love to share is a bit of a challenge when it comes to AI about how to create impact. Because we will speak a lot about these days about how great data is, how important infrastructure is, but we need to remind ourselves whatever we do here, it is there to make corporates and the businesses more healthier in EBIT, in the money they create. And there's a link we need to think of, and I would love to share a bit how we see this being in automotive. BCG, you know, they were working on strategies. We're a consultancy. We have built up over the last years an amazing powerhouse around some of the smartest data scientists, data engineers around the world. But again, to keep and to eat our own medicine, to bring this all to value, I think the most important for us is how do we embed all this intelligence around data into domain knowledge. So what is for us most important is that someone who really can code, how someone who is a top-class engineer also understands deeply the automotive value chain, deeply the automotive industry, so he can combine whatever he thinks he is doing to what really makes sense to automotive clients. Over the last years, we were thinking about where can AI really kind of disrupt and really kind of not only be a cool gimmick to what AI is doing to automotive players, but where is it really can be visible into the P&L and the financial success of companies. And we were working a lot on pricing. You can imagine the last year's pricing, just recently with the whole tariff situation, but also demand patterns, the supply chain crises, the whole stock management, the whole supply chain management. A lot of those things were so disruptive to automotive that they are really kind of differentiated some of the automotive players to be winners, and some of them really become the losers of these days. And AI and the way of managing this complexity is a huge important lever. Let me share one of the most provocative slides we have in BCG these days. And let me guide you through a bit something we call the maturity curve, where we stand with AI at the moment. And this is us looking in the automotive industry, but looking at so many clients out there. And there's in reality we are facing, a lot of the AI and the data projects we are seeing, everybody's pushing, they are not real value. They look like value, they smell like value, but they are not real EBIT. Let me explain. We just did a self-assessment of CEOs around the world, and 60% of CEOs and CFOs are self-assessing themselves in a category called the showman. The showman, deliberately provocative, is a category where you do a lot of things right. You invest into a data platform, into infrastructure, you even build it for scale, you make it secure, you make it accessible, you do a lot of things right. You even create use cases or even process transformations, you drive adoption, and you adjust the status quo, and you are trying to succeed. Taking an example of a big automotive OEM we have seen, they have done all those things, created an amazing AI platform. They kind of went through all the things around infrastructure, the risk teams, the worker councils. They took everybody on board. They took a large process in their company and fully transformed it. Not one use case, but a real process, end to end. They transformed it with AI. And they did for 3 months an A/B test to look how 300 of the old team or old process of the teammates were operating versus the new process with AI enabled. They have proven more than 50% efficiency. They are running 50% faster with the new process. And they were celebrating this in their board, in the financial community. We were celebrating. Everybody was super happy about that. It looked like impact. You had the benchmark. It smells like impact. But if you put on the glasses of the CFO, where is the money? The thing we found is, yes, the process was running faster, but the free up time of the team were not used efficient. They were just doing other stuff. They were doing backlog. They were doing longer breaks. Nobody really took care about restructuring the freed up time. The second thing happened, this process indeed runs significantly faster, just that the organization realized it created a bottleneck somewhere else in the value chain. So it's a bit an example, but what we see a lot these days is a lot of input, a lot of effort on the data and the AI side, but not everything which looks like impact is real EBIT. And there are many reasons for that. Technology, maturity of the organizations, but one of the biggest reasons is the color code of this slide. This is the point. We see, and this is what this room mostly represents and what also this conference represents, the tech community is on their toes. The tech community is pushing and is having ideas and is driving all this change. What we very, very strongly observe, and this is a European and a US thing, the non-tech community is too passive. We see so many efforts being pushed by techies, but then if you think of the things which will make this trend to be money, the restructuring of the team, the change or the debottleneck of the full process, this is often with a mandate which the tech community doesn't have. So at the moment, one of our observations, early days and things are changing fast, but one of our observations is that the non-tech community is too much in a cinema seat, observing, challenging, asking, prove me that AI can work. They are not leading enough. Actually, if we look at where really AI really made it to money maker, so really made it beyond all those steps, this is where we have seen non-tech leaders leading. The head of BUs, the head of procurement, the head of function, those ones who then invite the tech to kind of drive change and together make this happen. This is where we see real EBIT transformation. So AI changing the financial reality of large corporates. This is only happening when those two work together. Let me bring us back to what it means for automotive and why this is important for us to think of in the whole ecosystem of AI at the moment. So when we think about how to make it to money maker with AI in automotive, and we think a bit, we take a domain of sales, one of the most important things is to better understand reality. And for years in the community in automotive, the reality is so complex. There's so many things which not perfectly are there. The data is not perfectly there. The understanding of the competition is not perfectly there. The supply chain is super complex. So a lot of efforts we have seen, they have given up in conquering complexity, and they went for something they were always calling smart simplicity. Let's find a pragmatic way to solve the problem. It didn't really fly. What came out of this whole effort of simple or simplicity was that we have seen a lot of tools being generated, and they were interesting, they were insightful, but given they are not solving the full complexity, users and decision makers were just taking them as an input, looking at them, often ignoring them, and then did their own thing. So the big question for us is, in this new era of AI, how do we use this technology to accept the world is super complex, but we are not giving up on the complexity, we're trying to really conquer it. And in automotive, understanding one of the most complex things to understand is around what is the consumer doing at the moment. What is kind of the implication for our optimal price? You see how many things are at the moment influencing price. What is the question around optimal stock management? So where to put how much stock, how to organize your supply chain. A lot of questions to raise. Let me start with pricing. Or I will only do pricing given time constraints. But pricing, you can imagine, is extremely interesting these days. And especially if you think of the starting point of many of automotive manufacturers, automotive OEMs, as harsh as it sounds, but they don't know the price they're selling their cars for. Because most of them are selling cars to dealerships, and dealerships are selling them to individual customers. And dealers can do whatever they want with the price of the car. They can use their own margin. They're using financial services to discount. They're using a trade-in discount to take in your old car. They're using residual value discounts to kind of subsidize a lease product or whatever you want. For OEMs, it's amazingly difficult to understand what is the actual transaction price. There are some markets like the US where it's more transparent, more mature, but in the rest of the world, it's almost impossible to keep track. The second big thing we are seeing is a real lack in automotive is the understanding of elasticities. The question like how a price change would impact volume change sounds pretty easy in theory, but there are so many things impacting volume which have nothing to do with price. The stock situation, your brand awareness, your competitive set, like regional micro-market dynamics, the performance of the dealers. There's so many things which have nothing to do with price, and distilling the real price signal, and then putting this, and this is the last one, putting this in all the real-world constraints, tariffs, CO2 emission taxes. There's so many things which even then will kind of calibrate if it is a good or bad decision. So a perfect example of if you go only for one of these pieces and try to solve a bit, you could create something which looks like impact, smells like impact, but it's not real impact. So our finding is you need to really go the full, whatever problem, it's just an example, whatever problem you take, you need to think it through end to end to really prove, is there money to gain? Are you able to influence the decision, or are you just giving a nice to have, nice dashboard type of insight, or are you really influencing that? So conquering complexity is what we were on. This is a logic we are now built up for a couple of the big OEMs. Where one of the public examples we can share, I think we're working for the BMW group. We have kind of launched the pricing engine in many markets for them. Bringing this all together into one workflow is probably the most exciting journey we have seen over the last 3 years to go after. Bringing really the complexity together of what is happening in market, what is happening in the OEM itself, how do you connect these data points, and how do you do the interpretation. So sometimes you will have KPIs turning in one direction, like your stock is aging, but your competitor is getting aggressive, your supply chain is drying out. There are so many conflicting signals. How to create a logic to bring this all together. The magic here is around the data. It is not so much about the UI or UX, or it's not so much about the steering process. The magic about conquering complexity lies in managing the complexity in form of data. And obviously, bringing together this data in an organization like the BMW Group or any other OEM is not kind of located in one place. They're serving more than 100 markets, and every market is an individual small kingdom. The sales department has very different infrastructure than the supply chain departments. They are huge corporates which have huge silos in infrastructure, in governance. Bringing this information together. But if you're only looking at the OEM itself, you will be having heavily self-fulfilling prophecy type of data. Because whatever you get out of this OEM is somehow influenced by the decision-making of this OEM in the past. So you need to bring in the new world, the external world, the competition, other signals. Like, bring this all together takes so much time. And once you did it, you want to maintain it. You want to make it scale in 100 markets or something like that. So making those pipelines being efficient, being scalable, is something we see in modern state-of-the-art technologies, and Databricks is an extremely great example to help us to really prepare a lakehouse in a way that it can really kind of scale fast. I think the estimate from the team is that we can run it with 50% less effort in the overall effort just by organizing that. Second one is there's not one machine learning model you need to do that here. There are a couple of elements in machine learning we need to take into account, maybe demand forecasting models, maybe kind of the elasticity models we were talking over, and other simulation capabilities. Reinventing this over and over again, always hyper-configuring that, is a extremely important task, but having a notebook to have it already kind of pre-packaged, having it a bit more standardized to accelerate the development process is key. And if we talk about pricing, it's a so sensitive function of the OEM's top line. Being a bit wrong may kind of influence heavily the success of the company. It needs to be totally enterprise-grade secure. It needs to be managing, obviously we are talking about very sensitive margin data and things like that, so it has to be a very, very strong access right management behind that. And again, think of that not in one small department, think of that in an organization with more than 100,000 employees, and everybody in every silo has a different kind of roles and rights management. This to orchestrate is something which is Databricks is perfectly built for. But to conclude with the point, it is about conquering complexity, not going for the simple one, but moreover, it's how do we bring this to money? And our learning of the last years is to really kind of think to end, really until the point you see the money in the bank and not stopping earlier, because there's very likely that if you kind of conclude the full journey, it might not conclude at all. Cool. Thanks for your attention. Have a good conference.
Clearly this one doesn't work. Does work. Okay, so thank you, Andre. First of all, amazing to know that the BCG team is now building out solutions on Databricks. So what that means for every customer is you get the domain expertise that BCG brings to the table with the best technology that's out there in AI development. So super cool, excited to see more. Hopefully we'll do more of these things in the future and be launching a lot more solutions that customers don't have to reinvent the wheel on. When you already have something that can be brought to market much faster, why would you recreate it? So thank you so much for Andre. One more round of applause here, really quick. All right, now, my favorite. Two individuals from the UK who are now sharing data with each other and are transforming what aviation data collaboration looks like. So Rich and Andy, time to get up on stage.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you to Databricks for letting us come and share this story today. This is a combination of two pieces of work we pulled together, and it's really talking about where the future of travel is going to go to. So, I'm Andy Eiserman. I'm the head of cloud and technology, but also moving into a product role at Heathrow, and I'm Richard.
Yeah, I'm Richard Masters. I'm the VP of Data and AI at Virgin Atlantic. Starting with me. So a bunch of stats, lots of stats up there on us at Virgin. It just gives you a sense of who we are as an airline. Hopefully people are familiar with the brand, with us as an airline. Hopefully people have experienced it as well. But we're long haul only. So we have our hub in Heathrow, and we fly out of Manchester and Edinburgh as well. But we connect the States with the East as well. And a big thing I want to just focus in here is this connecting passengers side of things. So we're collaborating with Heathrow, and collecting passengers is a big part of that, big part of our of who we serve. And just another stat on there is around our size. We've got 45 aircraft, so people might not be too familiar with that, but we're relatively small for an airline as well. So making those experiences really key is important to us.
Cool, and a little bit about Heathrow. So we're actually 84 million passengers last year, which was 5 million before, more than we were at 2019. So not only have we gone through COVID, but our passenger numbers are higher now than they've ever been before. 46,000 flights a year, of which Virgin's our second biggest carrier. We are a 3.6 billion revenue organisation, and we have 75,000 people working at Heathrow, keeping the place running. Heathrow is 4.7 square miles. For those that are British in the audience, that's the size of Winchester. So small city. And we have all sorts of different weird and wonderful things at Heathrow. So 2 fire stations, we have an animal reception centre, so all Emirati racehorses and polo horses that will ever compete in the UK will fly through our airport at any given time. And we have 2 rivers, which we had to redivert around Terminal 5 when we built it, and making sure all of the ecology and everything in place was still in place to make sure those rivers who flow into the Thames still exist. So I'm going to show you next a little bit of a video, if I can find out where the button is for it to work. And this video shows Heathrow through data from when we started collecting data in 1991 through to the end of 2023 when this video was created. And what you'll see when we run this is within our data you can see global change. So let me run that for you now. Ooh. This was always going to be a risk. Which one are we on? How do we get it to play? 1 second. I've lost the mouse. Is it that one? No. We'll go back one. Go back 1. Yeah. And then go. Here we go. So this is moving now. So what you can see right at the top, 1991, is France was our biggest thing. And it's shooting back 24, 25. This is the opening of the Channel Tunnel and Eurostar. We start seeing the USA grow and grow quite quickly as a market. In a second, you'll see the impact of 9/11 when we get to 2001. So this is the shrinking of global aviation traffic because of terrorism. There's a small glitch here with liquid bans and laptop bans. We grow back again for a bit. At this time, we're starting to see United Arab Emirates grow as a destination. At 2007, we get to 3 million passengers for the US, and then the recession comes from the credit crunch, and we can understand where we are now. Just in a second, we'll see a small glitch where we go up. This is the London 2012 Olympics and the growth of passengers, which eventually does tip us over 3 million, but we can see the United Arab Emirates' impact on investment in aviation here. At this point, we think that United Arab Emirates might overtake USA as a destination. But what we're going to see in a minute is the impact to the aviation sector for COVID. And this is the impact it had on all of our businesses. And where we use data was this growth all the way back. And this is where Databricks has been supporting us as an airport. So to go from 19 million all the way back to about 4 million and then back to 83 million is the journey that we've gone through, and all of our forecasting is run on the Databricks platform.
Brilliant. So I love that. I love that graphic. It's yeah, can't compete with that. I've not got a slide quite as good as that in any of my decks actually. Anyway, it's really fantastic.
You can use ours.
Yeah. Thanks. I'll take that on. So look, for us at Virgin Atlantic, as I talked about earlier, connecting passengers are a big part of us. I've talked in some other forums today around what we've done around building our customer identity using Databricks and our partnership with Amperity, and understanding more and more about the types of customers that are traveling on us, that full plane aspect, whether you're part of our flying club or not, hopefully you are. And what we can do with that data to understand more about how we can reduce the seams on those journeys. How do we know what's going on with who is connecting? What are those connection times that they've got going on? Are you actually gonna be fine and make your connection? Are you gonna be really tight, so we have to help you through the airport there? Or are you just gonna miss it and we can deal with and helping you out during that disruption? So the seamless passenger journeys for us is kind of really key in how we can reduce those seams with our whether it's our SkyTeam partners and our joint venture partners with Delta or with AFKL connecting onto our flights, or through with our airport partners as well with Heathrow. So how we can kind of share some of those core statistics can really help with those seams, help the operational teams prepare for disruption and events during the day.
So all the optimization that's done by the airline is fantastic, but it's no good if we don't have any operational efficiency on the ground. So this is where we come in with the data, and we're starting to drive how do we get better resource allocation, how do we achieve that turnaround time safely and make sure that everyone gets onto their plane safely and securely. And then how do we make sure that all of those 75,000 staff that work at Heathrow are coordinated around the operation of our airport so that we can get that next flight out back to Virgin and to lead with the passenger experience.
Yeah, and that seamlessness really optimizes that travel experience for you, because you're going to go on to your holiday or to your business trip as well, and you're going to remember, you're going to be in a certain mood depending on how that journey went, how that travel experience kind of kicked off for you as well, and that kind of stays through, and we see it in the NPS results in the surveys at the same time. So having that kind of through helps us keep improving that and optimizing that when you come back through on your next trip.
So here are some of the challenges that we're facing. So data integration is the first problem, and we're coming from a place where APIs take an incredibly long time to build. They're very bespoke. Everything has to be very tightly integrated. So how we work and how we integrate our data within between Heathrow and Virgin Atlantic, we've got a significant advantage being on the same platform and being able to start thinking about how to share from Databricks to Databricks, and that's really important to us. Go on.
No, I was going to say I was probably going to skip straight onto the semantics part, actually, but it really fits with that platform alignment there, with Unity Catalog, with having those ability to have different definitions and ability to share across there is really key for us. Do you want to talk about some of the tech misalignment first, and then I can come back to that?
Yeah, sure. So the challenge with the tech fragmentation we find is, where does the data privacy piece come in this piece? So how, by being unfragmented when it comes to the technology, that we know that we are sending information from one place to another, knowing that it's going to be received in a similar ecosystem, in a similar vein, and then passed back to us in a way that we can ensure what we're receiving is the right information to be able to act on.
Yeah, and the way we'll share it is around aggregate statistics, really. It's around those overall statistics on connecting times, as I said, the types of passenger overall. And we're not exposing sensitive information there, but the platform lets us make sure that that's not happening as well, that we can share at the right aggregation. We can really kind of understand and tag the data with the right use cases around that and control that right through the stack at the same time. And that's where, as I just mentioned earlier, Unity really helps us do that sort of thing. And things like delta sharing and the technologies there can help us kind of split that across platforms.
Cool.
So if I carry on with my semantics point next, so sorry, this is a passion project of mine when it comes to the knowledge graph that people may hear about as kind of a key layer here when it comes to the data connecting things through to AI and governance as well. But for the airline and travel industry and with our airport partners as well, the graph is key. The way we talk about these ontologies, these taxonomies, how things relate, it's really going to help us move towards this kind of future retailing state where we really want to get to as an industry. Everyone's thinking about this across the industry. How do we make that more of a retail type experience for people so you have more choice, more ways to kind of build your basket and have these experiences? The semantic alignment there across us all and how we really manifest that within our data sets is going to be critical to that. So that's a really key point for me to take away from this, is this all kind of trying to get our definitions right across the piece. Back to me. So if we don't get it right, then this is what can happen. You get these unhappy passengers when it comes to the seams. If you've got a carrier A connecting onto carrier B, they could be point of the joint venture with us, they could be Virgin to Virgin, they could be other competitors out there. We don't own the full journey. This is a really important point when it comes to thinking about retail and this kind of end state we want to get to with kind of breaking down a lot of these barriers in the way you may see some of these seams when taking a trip. So actually having that collaboration in various forms, competition. Someone coined a term earlier around how you can have competitors still kind of collaborating with data in this state. And you can do that through clean rooms, through ways of just looking at these statistics that can help, and have Heathrow in the middle there, helping us kind of all collaborate and give to get in terms of that data to help really kind of reduce the seams and the friction going on from carrier to carrier.
So how does this all come together? Well, I mean, this is where we're so excited about Delta sharing and being able to move that data from it, because it's going to allow us to be able to use this technology to map the entire journey. So from the arrival of the aircraft in the first place, through to the operational process of getting that landed, handing that process back to the airline to be able to service their passengers, provide that passenger experience. And then when that plane and passengers are ready to go, we can then take that information back on, and we can focus on how do we get that plane on the way, and then finally back to Virgin to be able to serve their passengers en route.
Brilliant. So this is some extra stats going on here. So this is where, these are some great stats as well, like 50% reduction in misconnections and missed baggage rates, and a 16-point increase in satisfaction. So, you know, connecting passengers have a tough time of it sometimes, right? You've got so many different scenarios, so many different things that could happen, and starting to kind of reduce those misconnections, to increase that satisfaction, find ways of improving your experience along the way is really key. And we've got code shares going on with various different partners I mentioned earlier as part of our SkyTeam Alliance. We just announced something with Indigo as well recently, and that's going to drive a lot of great kind of connecting passengers through Heathrow on that. So they're great, all the logos up, fantastic, thank you. So, you know, having those stats really manifest for our partners and for our connecting passengers off our alliance there is going to be really key for us. So being able to collaborate there with Heathrow to get those stats in the right place at the right time is really going to kind of, 16 points is pretty big. That's going to help a lot.
Yeah. So what are the next steps? It's great that we've got this partnership, but this partnership needs to extend from airline to airline. It needs to extend from airport to airport. So the trade bodies that exist around aviation, including IATA, are a great place to be able to put standard reference data. So we're working on minimum connect times between airlines and airports so that we've got a standardized set of rules. And then with those rules can get played out to other third parties. It might be travel agents, it might be booking sites and other areas where we can really start sharing the data not only between the airlines but within the whole ecosystem, the community. I think we need to break down those silos. We need to start talking about it in terms of value, in terms of what it means to each, with each party. We're trying to move away from how much does data cost, how much can we sell data for, and more about how we work better together in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, and getting those definitions back to the semantics point is key. It helps us have that common language. It helps explain it to our other stakeholders in our organizations as well. When you talk about some of this data sharing, people get a bit nervous saying like, oh, we can't share individual customer data at this level. We're not doing that. We're sharing statistics, we're sharing aggregate views that you can still take a lot of action off the back of. And I think kind of bringing everyone along for that as it manifests in your own data and your own insight within your organizations helps you then talk about it when you want to collaborate with others and communicate that real value. It's one of those ones where without the tech being so kind of seamless and easy to do this now, it made it even more of a challenge because you might get someone convinced around it in terms of, oh, this might be the right thing to do, but then that tech challenge of being able to then implement it means you've lost that audience again because someone else has come in or a new group's come in, a whole new process has changed. But we can just turn it on, right? We can create those aggregate views, we can start to share those. It's now the story, it's now that value piece. You talk about how you can think about this differently.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to see for Heathrow and from Virgin over the next year or so, a deeper collaboration, really using the Databricks technology to be able to share that data between us in a seamless and trusted way. And hopefully that will continue driving our value to our passengers up because they're both our passengers.
Exactly.
So that's us.
There we go.
Thanks again to Rich and Andy. Quick round of applause, one more time. All right. We're almost at the end, and I believe you guys were missing something before we leave. So I'm going to bring it up for you guys. I think I went through this pretty quick. So the people who couldn't scan the QR codes, apparently I was very quick with this. So people who couldn't scan the QR codes can now do so. So again, just to remind all of you, help us help you. These are the kind of solutions we want to bring to market alongside our partner ecosystem. But without further ado, thanks so much for joining us today. That's a wrap. And see you outside at the reception. Thank you very much. Look for the Rivian truck right there.